whenever I get a nasty comment on Instagram, like a cruel comment or a racist comment or something, it's always somebody that's, hiding behind a different name or,
Welcome to another episode of Chewing the Fat. I am your host, Big Rob. Thank you so much for downloading the episode and listening in. I certainly do appreciate it. Thank you for the folks that have bought me a coffee at chewingthefatbr.com. I appreciate the help in keeping the podcast rolling, and I am so excited about my guest this week. All right, this is going to be a treat for all of us this time, because my guest this week is someone I barely know other than a probably 4-paragraph conversation back and forth via Instagram. Please welcome Robb Mommaerts.
Correct.
Yes. Right. I almost doubted myself as I was saying your name. Robb is an illustrator, an amazing illustrator. Robb, just to gush on you for a while, I have followed you for quite a while on Instagram. I followed another illustrator, and he followed you, and I saw your stuff, and I just love your style. I love.
Thank you.
I love your line work and your colors, your style. There's so much emotion and joy and in the work that you do. So
thank you.
Yeah, I am so pleased to have you here talking to me today. Robb, and it's funny how we kind of started the conversation. When I say that it literally was like a 4-paragraph back and forth over Instagram, I think I had liked a design that you had done and posted on your Instagram, and I don't know if I commented on it or whatever, and you wrote back because we were both Robbs with 2 B's.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the whole conversation started over Double B, the
Double B Club.
That's right. Robb.
Yeah. I've heard that many times throughout my life.
Yeah. So Robb, you're calling in from Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Right now. Yep.
So is Wisconsin home for you? Is that where you grew up?
Yes, I grew up in Green Bay and still live here. And yep, I haven't ventured out too far. It's right now we're experiencing the early spring, so it's been 50, 60 one day, and the next day it's 20, and so that's been interesting. But I just got back from my son started playing soccer in this one league, and he had his first outdoor scrimmage tonight.
Yeah, and
it was on a pretty nice field. Our artificial turf, but we were out there in the wind and it rained, and it was pretty miserable standing out there for an hour. But it was about in the 30s. But
wow, yeah, that does sound miserable. How old's your son?
He's 11 and a half.
Oh, wow.
6th grade. So
so this is his first foray into soccer.
He played soccer a little while back, and then he stopped playing for a while, and then last fall he started up again, and he's getting a little more serious about it. He really enjoys it. So
cool. Yeah. That's awesome. So as far as you getting your start in illustrating and graphic design and drawing, was that always from a young age? Were you a scribbler?
Yes, very early age. 2 or 3 years old, I started drawing, and I was always very inspired, mostly by Jim Henson's always been I've always been a huge fan of Jim Henson and all his stuff. And I was exposed to that at a pretty young age, Sesame Street and The Muppet Show and other, cartoons that were on at the time, Looney Tunes and all that stuff, comics. And, when I was real little, I recently was going through, my mom saved a ton of old artwork and dropped it off at the house. I had all these huge bins full of art. Yeah. And most of it, I was surprised, but most of it was all like 80% Sesame Street drawings.
Oh, wow.
At a young age, it was kind of fun because I could tell who was who in the images, Big Bird with the the orange and pink striped legs and but they're all pretty scribbly drawings. But yeah, young age, I always, from a very, very young age, I knew I wanted to be some sort of artist, illustrator or cartoonist or whatnot. But since a very young age, either that, or I always tell people this, I either wanted to do that or be an astronaut. When I found astronauts didn't have lightsabers, then I lost interest. So. Yeah.
I mean, if you can't have a lightsaber
or laser guns, but So, but yeah, drawing, it was always, I think I might have had attention deficit when I was younger. Cause I know I always got in trouble a lot in school for drawing during class and drawing on math sheets and that sort of thing. I recently found a bunch of old papers from like math tests, which I usually did pretty poorly on, of course. But there was all these monsters drawn in the margins, and the teacher would always write, this is not art class, this is math and that kind of thing. So that kind of plagued me not plagued me, but my whole life. Was always doodling and getting in trouble for it in class.
But, I think there's something special about, especially those kids that have that type of stuff inside, and you need to get it out. I mean, you at least you were just, you're drawing on your math homework or whatever, but it's not like you were disturbing the rest of the class. It's like, yes, you may not have been getting the education per se that the teacher wanted you to have, but there's something magical about taking those things that are inside and making them real on the outside by drawing or writing music or poetry or that type of stuff.
I was a pretty quiet kid growing up, in some ways, shy, but I always could get people to laugh by doing funny drawings, and sometimes that would get me in trouble. I would do a drawing and send it to one of my friends across the classroom, or someone would ask me to draw. They'd say, "Draw this," or "Draw the teacher," or something like that.
Right.
And, that kind of thing. I get in trouble, but
gotcha.
Yeah,
that's, and so obviously that bug, that natural talent, you kept up with it. You kept going. You went into school for art.
Yes,
after high school.
Yeah, all through high school. I took every art class I could take. And I started actually doing freelance illustration when I was in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I did quite a bit of, I had a part-time job that I worked at Office Max. I don't know if you have them down by you. I'm assuming you do, or Office Depot.
Office Depot, I think. Yeah.
And I worked there throughout high school, but I mostly did that as just to get, experience working with others and getting out of the house. And I used to, for a short period of time, me and my friends would kind of get into mischief, nothing harmful, but my mom, my mom and dad wanted me to go out and get a job. And when I was about 16, but the freelance illustration was great because, I got to do something I love doing and get paid for it.
Yeah.
And I did quite a different, I had some different clients. I was drawing for one of the weirder ones was for this was pre-internet, but it was a mail order catalog. So I was drawing all these like handmade soaps and like random things. It was kind of fun, candles and stuff like that. Wow. It wasn't the most exciting work, but it was fun and just all line art that would go in these one color catalogs.
Yeah.
And some of the more fun stuff, I was doing conceptual art for a few different smaller like marketing agencies. And I know there was one, I live in Green Bay, so Lambeau Field, Green Bay Packers. There's always like different events going on or promotional stuff. And I remember doing some stuff for a company where they were promoting one of those, those jet packs you see on, I don't know, you don't see them as much anymore, but they're like these weird, I don't know how they fly, but you'd see them at sporting events in like the 70s and 80s.
Yeah,
and
like the compressed air jetpacks, like the guys flying around or whatever,
I remember doing a thing for for that once for, I don't know, I can't remember who the client was, but it was, I had to do that. I drew like the Budman, the superhero, the Budweiser guy. And, trying to think what other ones. I did a few of them different client to use as proposals.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff was a lot of fun to do. And one of the most memorable freelance work I did when in high school, our local newspaper, the Green Bay Press Gazette, it had a pretty good circulation, but they started a teen page. Mm-hmm. So they were looking for artists in middle school and high school to write articles, do reviews, et cetera, all from teen perspective. Mm-hmm. But I did a lot of the artwork for that, for the editorial articles, and so that I did a ton of work for that. And for a while I had like a comic strip in there. It was kind of not the best comic strip, but but it was a great experience. I still have all that stuff today in a binder.
Yeah,
I saved all the clippings. This was in the 90s.
I mean, you had a published comic strip in high school. That's pretty cool.
It was fun. It was I think I only did like 7 of them, maybe tops, but yeah, it was cool to see that in print, and that work I got to do some more work for them when I was in college, which was really fun. Beyond the teen page, so that was
Is it cool now to kind of look back at some of that stuff to see how far you've progressed? And I mean, I can't draw stick figures, so I don't know exactly what that process is like, but to be able to look back and go like, man, I remember sweating over that, trying to get that out. Whereas now, I'm sure you're still sweating over stuff, but it comes so much more fluid and much more natural for you to be able to get into that rhythm and get into that zone.
Yeah, it's fun to look back at that stuff, because this was all like when I started school, it was when it was kind of the design world was transitioning and using Macs. So all like Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator and all those programs. And I, before college, I think the only computer I ever touched was the one in keyboarding class in high school.
Right.
So when I did all that stuff for the newspaper, it was all, traditional hand rendered art that they would just scan and print in the paper. But, as time went on, it was fun learning, learning how to use the Adobe software and in college, and, moving on to college.
Yeah. Did the advancement in technology, did you find that freeing in a way for your style, or helping you define your style of art for like maybe what you're doing now?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that was years ago, and I obviously still am working. I still work 50-50, like half traditional hand rendered art, and then versus I do all like the colors digitally and text and that sort of thing.
Okay.
But it was really cool, because at the time I thought, jumping to doing things on a computer, I thought once I saw my art on an actual computer screen, it was very real to me. It was just kind of, before previous, it was always, everything was on paper, and it just seemed more professional seeing it up on a computer screen with, and I immediately changed the colors, and everything was a lot quicker to do it digitally. And it was, it was exciting to see.
Yeah. Is there somebody that you're a big fan of right now that maybe is completely different stylistically than you, an artist or illustrator or somebody like that?
Well, that's a thing, and there's so many of them that just blow my mind. I get lost when I go on Instagram and flipping through all the amazing stuff that pops up. And the worst part of it is when I look and I see something and I find out the person's like half my age, and they're like in college, or like, I'm like, what? You're doing that at that age? It's kind of insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have folders on my Mac at home that I have like all my favorite artists. There's hundreds of them. but I just, whenever I discover a new artist, I just grab whatever I can from their, what they have posted online, and I throw it in a folder and I look at it for inspiration while I'm working, or if I'm thinking of, like, if I'm doing a character design, I'm thinking, like, how would this person draw, a 90-year-old man, or whatever, I go back and I kind of look through their work, and you just, try not to copy it, of course, but
right.
Just, for inspiration and just to spark new ideas. But
yeah.
And Instagram is such a nice, I mostly stick to like the artwork on Instagram. I don't really go around looking for other things, but there's just a real nice supportive artist community on there. That's great. And everybody leaves nice comments. And
yeah, I was going to ask if in that world of illustration and, design, if it's a supportive community.
It is. It's a lot of like-minded individuals and lots of mutual respect. And if you're looking for advice on something, if it's technical advice or career advice, there's always someone on there to guide you in some way.
That's so
cool. I had a friend that he saw I had commented about a printer, and he went and he shot this whole video at home and sent it to me through Instagram. And I was like, wow, thank you. He showed me how to use the printer, and it's that kind of stuff I just love.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so again, because that's not I like to look at the pretty pictures, but it's good to know that the people that are creating that art are, that type of community as well. That makes me feel even better about the appreciation of it. I know you've got a book series out, Claude.
Yes.
Klawde, Claude.
Yes. Claude, Evil Alien Warlord Cat. It's a series through Penguin Workshop, and it's written by Johnny Marciano and Emily Chenoweth. And the sixth book came out this past August, and the final book. And I started that series a few years back, and it was a huge deal for me because I always wanted to get like a middle grade chapter book series. And this was like my first time working with one of the bigger publishers. So this was a dream job for me, basically. And the last two books I did when the pandemic started. So it was kind of weird because, my day, I have a day job. I work for Cryptozoic Entertainment, and I work remotely. They're in California. I mean, up in Green Bay, totally different weather, of course. And, but I've been working for them for 11 years, and that's a dream job. It's so much fun to work for those guys, and we do a lot of fun stuff together. But on the side for publishing, I like picking up freelance jobs for like children's publishing, and this series came about. My job with Cryptozoic didn't slow down during the pandemic because life didn't change for me at all, because I work in my little dungeon basement here and where I don't see anybody except a dog all day long. And the last two books came out when the pandemic started. So I was kind of like cranking on those, trying to get those finished. So it was kind of weird because I had, people that I knew that were not working, and they were just kind of like bored at home. And I was kind of stressed out at that time because I had a lot going on, and it was kind of a very weird situation. But yeah, it's, this project came at a good time for me, because it was just, it was something I had always wanted to do, and I hope it leads to more work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. How do you find work? How would someone coming along, find work?
Well, before I joined DeviantArt. Are you familiar with DeviantArt?
Yeah.
I joined them, I think it was right before my daughter. I have a 14-year-old daughter also. And it was right before she was born. And that, once I got on an online art community, that like changed everything for me, because I was mostly doing freelance. I worked as a graphic designer for 15 years before I was an illustrator, and I worked in an agency. So I did some illustration there, but getting online and joining up with other illustrators and meeting people at comic conventions and that sort of thing, that was just like the world opened up for me then. And I'm not too active on Deviant. I'm not really active at all on Deviant anymore, mostly just Instagram. But yeah, because I was mostly working for local clients, and then when I started putting my stuff online, my work kind of got out there, and I started picking up freelance from different companies throughout the country and the world and whatever, and then on Deviant or on Instagram, someone from Penguin saw my work, and that's how I got the job. And well, actually, that's how I also got my job with Cryptozoic, is the work I had on DeviantArt.
Oh, wow.
Years back. And they found me on there, and they hired me for a freelance project. And they offered me a position with the company because they were just like a year old at the time, which was pretty cool. And, but I started working with an agent just a year ago with Jill Grinberg Literary Management and my agent Jessica St. John. We've been slowly like picking up projects here and there, and it's been going really good. But starting with Cryptozoic back, 11 years ago, I started working with them. They hired me for a game they were doing called Food Fight. And it was to design all these really crazy, like fast food characters, like weird, like I'm trying to think, they were kind of militaristic, like food characters, like like a pizza with a bazooka and that kind of thing.
Like a chicken nugget with a bandolier on or something.
Yeah, there's some pretty crazy characters, and there were some like food icons, like parodies of certain characters, but it was a card game. And then from there, I've ever since I've been working with them full time. I left my job at as a graphic designer, and it was a lifesaver for me because I had always wanted to be a full time illustrator, and they keep me busy with lots of cool things, fun things.
That's awesome. So the lesson is if you are an artist and you are an illustrator, put your art out. Don't keep it in a folder. Put it somewhere where people can find it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I tell that to my son who plays piano all the time. I was like, you want to do this, you have to be out where the work is. You can't stay at home and play in your room and write and compose your stuff. You've still got to put it out,
Yep.
So that somebody can stumble across it, so that you can be found, if you're not in that, atmosphere, on a daily type basis, where, I mean, you were in an ad agency, you were doing some stuff, but it still wasn't the stuff that really made your heart sing. And it was you putting that stuff that you really loved doing out that allowed people to find you. Yeah.
And chat with other artists. And there were some artists that I admired before my work was online. And it was kind of surreal because when I worked at the ad agency, I used to go through the illustration annuals and on my lunch break, and I would like cut out different illustrators I really admired. And I had a folder that I kept at my desk, and I put all these different, portfolio samples in there. And a lot of those guys I met years later on DeviantArt or Instagram, and it's kind of surreal to go back and to think that I would be talking to these people like in a few years, and trading comments or tips or that kind of thing, and it's pretty surreal.
Do you ever tell them that, hey, I have your picture in my lookbook folder of inspiration?
Yes, there's a few of them. Yeah, but once in a while I'll see somebody that I they'll leave a comment, and it's someone that I didn't know that knew who I was, and it's kind of like, what? I'll see their name, in my feed or something like that, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. And I mean, I can tell by your face as we're talking over Zoom, that you are really, you are loving what you're doing. And I mean, you also seem very appreciative of the place that you're in right now to be able to be doing what you're doing and what you love.
Oh yeah. And Cryptozoic, there's different properties I've got to work with, like Rick and Morty. And I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but
I mean, I've heard of it.
Yeah. I did some games with like some of the Cartoon Network shows and some of some DC Comics stuff. And there was one project I had to work on that was really exciting for me because I was a huge fan of the Super Friends cartoon when I was growing up, the 70s one. And I got to illustrate in the style of the original show. I had to kind of match the environment paintings and that, like Hall of Justice and all that kind of stuff. And then the way that they drew Batman and Robin and the Flash and Green Lantern and all those characters in that same style. And it was kind of surreal working on that, because I'm like, man, I was watching this cartoon as a little kid, and now I get to work on an actual official Super Friends card game, and that was pretty exciting.
That's so cool. I'm going to sound real geeky and a little stalkery when I say this, but I think it was an illustration you put around 2017. You did a Christmas Carol with Scrooge sitting in the chair and the Ghost of Marley, but it was like kids. Yeah,
that was one of my Christmas cards. Every year I do a card design. I've been doing this actually since 1995.
Yeah.
Hard to believe. Every year I do a card, and when my kids were born, I started theming the card around my kids. And then that one you're talking about I had my daughter as the Marley character, as the ghost, and then my son was in the Scrooge, and then my dog is sitting in the image too. But
yeah, I love that. I'm a huge Christmas Carol fan. Me too. I'm a huge Christmas Carol fan, and I saw that, and I think it was just probably one of the most just striking pieces that I'd seen, and I just loved it so much. I mean,
Thank you.
If I happen to give you my address and you put me on your Christmas card list, I wouldn't
definitely.
mind that
I was going to ask that after the show, see if I could get your address, put you on the list.
Shameless. I'm going to be shameless. No.
I would ask you anyways.
Oh, I appreciate that. Is there something that's on the horizon that you are really stoked to be working for or doing that you've got coming up?
Well, right now, I don't have any. Right now, I'm working on some portfolio pieces just to see if I can get more chapter book work.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm working on some fun images of one of my all-time favorite books, of course, is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So right now I'm working on some sample illustrations to put like a cover design and some of the classic scenes from the original book, the Roald Dahl book.
Yes.
Trying to stick. I'm trying not to watch I wasn't a huge fan of I was kind of I hate to say a little disappointed in the Tim Burton version.
Yeah.
But I love the original Gene Wilder movie. But I haven't seen either of those in a long time, so I'm trying to stay away from watching those. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to stick to the original Roald Dahl text, obviously. But there's so many little details in that I did not remember since I was a kid, like how they describe Willy Wonka. He's actually like a smaller, like a almost child-sized man, and I'm used to the big, tall Gene Wilder there. Mm-hmm. But like some of the other character descriptions and is kind of interesting. I just reread the book again, and I think I hadn't read the book since I was maybe about 10 years old, maybe, or 8 or something. I can't remember, but that's been so much fun to work on, just designing the characters, and I'm trying to do something a little different with them and seeing what other artists have done in the past and just trying to take a different spin on it.
Yeah.
While still being faithful to the original text.
Yeah.
And I'm also trying to slowly, this is where I get frustrated with myself sometimes. I have all these different ideas of things that I want to put together, like creator owns things.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to do, there's so many different ideas I have that are constantly evolving, but just a few different like fantasy or sci-fi graphic novel ideas based on some different characters. Here and there, I'll put stuff on Instagram, like different character designs, like wizards and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I really want to get serious about putting something together. I'm not the best writer in the world, but I'm okay. But I'd like to do something for younger readers. And graphic novels with kids right now are so huge.
Yeah,
and there's so much cool material out there that's just so inspiring. And there's a story inside of me that I just want to get out but I just have a hard time getting all those details to make sense. I have like sketchbooks full of weird random character designs, and I keep real messy sketchbooks with I work with like cheap tools like ballpoint pens and highlighters and that sort of thing, so all my ideas are very random.
Yeah.
But one of these days I'm going to just finally solidify them into something that's a little more concrete.
That's awesome. It's funny you talk about wanting to do something, that kind of graphic novel realm. I remember growing up, this probably, I don't remember if this was like middle school, early high school, or late elementary school. There were these pocket classic books.
I have a bunch of those
that are these illustrated versions of classic books. I have 2 stacks of them over here, right here in my office. And I love these things. And these are how I was introduced to those classics. They were how I wanted to learn to read those, like Call of the Wild, Frankenstein, Dracula, all of those great classic books. And it's black and white line art, panels.
The art in those is just beautiful. That I have a little story about those because my grandpa used to work at a St. Vincent de Paul, and he used to bring back comic books for me. And he was legally blind, so sometimes he didn't know what he was bringing back. Mm-hmm. There was a few times where I got some kind of interesting comics. They were like of the 1970s R. Crumb, but far worse than that.
Oh no!
And and I learned some things pretty quickly. But if he would have known that, he would have freaked out. But he gave me a whole set of those, and I still have them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in middle school there was a few times when I forgot to do a book report, so I would grab one of those and read one of the classic stories, and I would quickly do the book report based off of that.
Yeah,
but I hope none of my old teachers hear this. But.
Well, I mean, what are they going to do? Fail you now? I mean, it's like it's got a little pad. It's like you're outside the realm of being able to do anything about that. But yeah, I same way. I love those things. I thought that's and what a great gift to give to children, to be able to make it into a way that's very approachable to them, because it's something that, they're already reading comics. Oh, it looks like a comic, but it's these classic novels in that type of realm. But being able to do your own and creating these new universes and molding things that they might, that they can then, latch onto and stuff. And they could then inspire them to draw and illustrate, but also to read, Well,
I remember just a couple years ago, sometimes I do school visits once in a while, and they're mostly like around this area,
mm-hmm.
and mostly at my kids' schools. And it's been a while since I've done one, since the pandemic started. But I did a reading and like a little workshop for some kids I think it was up in Door County, which is north of me. It's a really beautiful. If you look at the state of Wisconsin, it's the thumb of Wisconsin. It's a really beautiful vacation area, but it's about a 45-minute drive from where I live. And I went up there and I did a thing for a group of kids at an after-school program. I think it was with the Boys and Girls Club.
Mm-hmm.
And there were these two or three little boys after that walked up to me, and they had like this homemade comic they did. and they were showing me all the characters, and they both collaborated on this. And the look on their faces, I'll never forget that. They were so excited about it, and it was so inspiring to see that.
Yeah.
And it actually kind of choked me up a little bit. But they were telling me about the different characters, but these two kids had been working on this after school together, at this program. And oh man, it just brought me back to when I was a kid, when I would do that with my friends, but they were very enthusiastic, and it was a really fun story too. The artwork was really cool, and it was pretty funny.
That's awesome. That's awesome to be able to.
It's just stuff like that really inspires me.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there you're looking ahead, is there a brass ring that you want to grab, a client, a character, I know you want to do your own stuff, but is there man, if I could get a contract with this company to be able to do this character or whatever that you're always have in the back of your mind?
Well, I would love to develop something with some of my own characters, but I would love to do just do another book series. And I guess if it was trying to think, if it was a previously created character, a well-known character, it'd be cool to work on something that was with the Henson Company. Cause I've always been a huge fan of the Muppets. And when I was a kid, I actually wrote, I still have the letter, but I wrote Jim Henson when I was a kid, and I got a letter back from him, which was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. And I have it, it's framed in my office. And he, in the letter, this was in 1985, a few years before he passed away, but in the letter, he encouraged me to keep drawing, and he said he enjoyed looking at my art. And I'm assuming, I don't know if I'm assuming he actually wrote it, right, but it's signed by him. Yeah. But that just was a huge inspiration for me, because he's been a hero of mine since I was a little, 4 years old, since I knew who he was, actually. So, but, and he also sent, they sent, I was a huge fan of the great Gonzo, the character Gonzo.
Yes.
And he sent me an autographed photo of Gonzo that was signed by Dave Goles, the voice of Gonzo. So,
yes.
The performer. So I have those in my office, but I always want to do something with the Muppets, but I'm on a big list of people that want to do that. If you go on Instagram, there's tons of awesome Muppet fan art on there. So,
but it, as you can attest, it only takes the one right person to see what you've done. So, keep hoping, talk to your agent. Hey, if you could slide this across the Henson Group desk, I'd appreciate that.
You mentioned A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
That's like my all-time favorite story. And to me, there's a million beautifully illustrated versions of that book, but something a project like that would be based on a classic, classic literature, that I would love that.
I'm gonna say a title, because as you say that, I'm gonna say a title and see if you've ever heard of it. L. Frank Baum, The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus.
Yes, I love that. I have I'm drawing a blank on his name. He's a wonderful watercolor painter. I think he just passed away. I bought a version of that book, and I don't know if it's the original. If it's a picture book, but it's pretty, thick picture book. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much text was in the original, but I think they actually did they do a stop motion movie of that years back?
Yes, there was a Rankin Bass.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's one of their lesser known ones, though. It kind of takes the backseat to Rudolph and all the other.
But it's one of my favorite ones. It definitely diverges from the original, text. But just as much as The Wizard of Oz diverges a lot from the original text of the book, too, if you're looking at the movie compare. But yes, they did have a stop motion, or whatever that process is called. It's not claymation. I realize that, but yeah, the stop motion Rankin Bass of Life and Adventures of Santa Claus. Usually I can find that on on Amazon or something around the holidays.
Yeah.
I always put it on my list to watch. So
there's a lot of Rankin Bass films there's some that pop up that I haven't even heard of, which is weird. I mean, I thought I'd seen them all, and there's there was that one I just saw recently. It was a Leprechaun film, and I didn't know that existed. Trying to think of the title of it. It's a Rankin Bass film from, I think, maybe from the early 70s.
The Leprechaun's Christmas Gold.
Okay.
Is that the one you're talking about? It's got the...
I think so. I think it had a tie-in with Christmas.
Yeah, it's got the banshee that's like buried under a tree, and the sailor comes to get a tree on the boat or whatever, and then the release.
Some of those visuals are kind of nightmarish when you think of them. Like the time when I was a little kid. Well, some of the stuff was kind of creepy in a way. It was cool, but it was.
Well, that's like the Rankin Bass did an animated. Was it? I always mess it up. Was it Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit?
I remember watching one of those in school, in elementary school, and being kind of freaked out by it. Yeah, like it was kind of intense for that time. I wasn't used to seeing cartoons like that where you actually felt fear, and
yeah,
it was
especially like when Gollum. He was trying to throw the ring back into and he bit his finger off in the cartoon, and it's like. What?
Oh, I didn't know they actually showed that in the cartoon.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like he bites his. I don't think there's any blood or anything, but he comes up and there's no finger there, and it's like he just bit his finger off. It's like here's your cartoon for the day, kids.
Well, I still have it. My grandma gave it to me, but she had this old. I'm trying to think. I don't have it in front of me. I think it's on my bookshelf over there if I can see it. But it's great children's stories. And I can't remember the name of the illustrator. He's from like the turn of the century. Mm-hmm. And it's all the old school fables, mm-hmm. like Three Little Pigs and Big Bet, or
what kind of Mother Goose Rhymes or
Billy Goat's Gruff and all those stories.
Grimm Fairy Tales.
And these are like from turn of the century, so they didn't really hold back on creepy visuals, and they didn't try to make it more kid friendly. It was these cautionary tales, and I remember my grandma reading those to me, and I remember I would just silently stare at those images, and they creeped me out. I mean, just the way they drew people, these creepy, sugar bowl haircuts and weird dancing around in tights and pointy shoes and just weird, creepy stuff in there. But I remember, I think it was the Billy Goat's Gruff that freaked me out the most, where, they if they were going to, if a character died, they actually, got eaten or something something creepy like that. But my grandma gave me that book years later, and it kind of as a joke. And I think maybe when I graduated high school or something like that. And, I still have that on my shelf, and I always go back and look at it.
Just for
nostalgia.
Scar tissue from your youth.
Yes.
Well, Rob, what is outside of illustration and work and things like that? What's bringing you joy now?
Well, I mean, I'm a dad, so I've 2 kids, and spending time with my kids and seeing how they seem to be like, every parent says this, but they're growing up so quickly, and my daughter's gonna be in high school next year, which just really freaks me out. And just thinking how quickly that time passed on. Like me and my wife this past weekend, we were going through some of their old toys and just kind of packing things up and finding better spots for them in storage in our basement. And it just kind of made me sad going through all that stuff. And you had I think it was the Jonathan Cook episode that you had on your podcast. He had mentioned something about keeping a lot of his kids' old toys for nostalgia, because they had, connected with different memories. And that's how it is with me. And it's funny because, it's like, I don't like getting rid of anything. And
right.
It's hard for me to do that, but like spending time with my kids and now that things are getting warmer outside, being out in nature and going for walks and and the one thing that's, I guess it's a good thing and a bad thing, but having my hobby be something I actually do for a living, that brings me a lot of satisfaction. And
for sure.
Yeah.
You ever illustrate any sunsets, sunrises, that type of stuff, or is that
like paintings out in nature, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Not often. Once in a while I'll do that. If I'm on vacation, I'll if I'm during the day and I just want to be outside and do something creative.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like fishing or anything like that or something, I always have a sketchbook with me whenever I go on vacation. And I know we stayed up at a lake last summer, and I did a pen and ink drawing off the dock and of the lake, and it was really beautiful setting. But and a lot of do a lot of photography with my iPhone now that you can take some pretty nice photos with iPhones, and I really enjoy that. I keep lots of reference material, so I do a lot of photography for nature shots and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So does that help you, like, for if you're like, obviously you say you're using it for reference, but for like textural colors, all of the above, that type of stuff?
Yeah, in environments, like I had mentioned before, I live just south of in Wisconsin, in this area called Door County, and Door Counties are just a beautiful place. It's lots of like cool rock formations, and you're surrounded by the Lake Michigan, and then on the other side is the Bay of Green Bay. So, and they have lots of beautiful parks there, and I go up there and take lots of photos, and I use those for some of my illustrations. If I have, like, I love drawing animals, so a lot of times I'll use that as a setting for. Years back, I illustrated a picture book series called this was almost 20 years ago now. It's hard to believe.
Wow.
It's called the Solomon Raven series. It was a 4-book series, and it's all based on animals of the North Woods that you'd find around here, North American animals. And it's each book shows a different season: winter, fall, spring, summer. And Door County, I use that as a setting for a lot of the imagery. I took lots of photos, and that always helps me just come up with different ideas. And when I'm out in nature, I come up with a lot of different ideas too. I'll see cool looking trees or rocks or moss or whatever, and incorporate that into a lot of my art. Yeah. I love drawing more organic things. I suck at drawing cars and buildings and that sort of stuff. I struggle at it, but
yeah. Is there I was asking if there's something that you still find difficult in some of your illustrations, whether it be, I have a friend and she will 100% put feet behind bushes, and she will put feet, cross legs. So she's just like, I can't draw feet. Yeah. I can't make them look right. So they're always hidden somehow.
Yes. Feet are so hard to draw. And I always find myself doing this quite a bit. Like if there's an awkward, like a layout of if someone's standing in a room or something like that, and there's a weird perspective with how like like they're in a kitchen or something, like the counter, a weird angle or something like that. Like I'll somehow find a way of like putting a chair or like a potted plant or something there to cover that area that's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
So if you see like a weird potted plant in any of my images, like you'll know what I'm trying to do. My dark secret. Or a pillow or something more organic looking that I don't have to worry about perspective.
Yeah. If you had one piece of advice to give someone who's wanting to pursue illustration, something you wish you had known earlier, as a piece of advice, what would it be?
Just networking, just getting out there and talking to other illustrators and throwing ideas back and forth. And just one of the things I always regret, I know, you can't go back and, hindsight's only 20/20, but I always wish that I was a little more ambitious at a younger age. I didn't really get the fire to just pick up projects or perfect my craft until I was like in my late 20s. So I still feel like I'm I don't want to say how old I am, but I still feel like I'm starting out. Like I always feel like which is a good thing, I guess. It's always a new experience for me, and I just, yeah, I guess I wish I would have, I guess, kept more of a focus towards a certain. I was kind of all over the place when I was starting out as an illustrator. I was working in all kinds of different styles, which is good and bad. I mean, I guess it depends on who you talk to, but I think I would have, if I would have, I guess, narrowed my focus a little more, I think I'd be in a better spot at this point. But there's so many things you learn trying new things, and I guess it's different for everybody.
All right, Rob, this is the second segment of the show. This is where we dive a little bit deeper into you, where we talk a little bit more about mental health. Everybody in the world goes through down days, dark days, has been through something where you feel utterly alone. But the thing is everybody goes through those things, and you're not alone. As an artist, as a creative, I know sometimes we feel those things, very deeply, because they help to inform our creativity ultimately. But it's got to be, you got to manage it sometimes.
Yeah.
So for you, how do you keep the darkness at bay?
Well, I mentioned some of that stuff earlier, like going for walks, being outside in nature, but like the past, 5 years or so have been kind of dark. I mean, to tell you the truth, things have been, more of a struggle with the pandemic, and now with what's happening overseas right now, and just the stuff you see on the news, it's very depressing, and I have to kind of train myself to not look at my news feed. It's kind of scary, and I guess I'm trying to, and a lot of your past guests have mentioned this, like trying to live in the moment and be present. And that really helps me. Sometimes I have to kind of detach myself from some of my, because I always have all these different, crazy, working on different ideas in my head and thinking about the future, or thinking of projects I want to work on and all that stuff. And I kind of forget I kind of block out what's happening around me. And I think, man, my kids are only little once, and they're middle school age. But, and just trying to be there for them as much as possible, and support the things that they're interested in. And I think another thing to be selfish, looking inward, to feel happy. A lot of times to deal with, difficult things going on, I kind of reach back into the past and pull nostalgia. Like I watch, old, 70s and 80s sitcoms like Three's Company and all, like shows like that, because it reminds me of a happier time when I was a kid and I didn't have any worries or that sort of thing. And I was really blessed I had a really good childhood. Yeah. And I grew up in a real safe neighborhood and nice kids. And my parents were very supportive, and I never really had any, I had a pretty smooth childhood. Yeah. I mean, I had my problems, that still, that everybody has. But I try not to dwell on that stuff. Yeah. And I also try not to hold my kids back from certain things due to like my own personal fears. Like I always worry my kids, doing stupid things that maybe I did, or having attitudes that I had. Yeah. And I try to give them advice, but I try to not let my personal fears hold them back with certain things. Yeah. And it's always that new thing. Like, I guess you're strapped, and I know you have two sons, right? Yeah. And they're in their 20s, I think you said. Mm-hmm. And like, I always, there's all, when I had kids, there's all these new this new anxiety and fears that I never had as a single guy or as a newly married guy. And that all that stuff kind of hits you and it becomes more real.
Yeah.
And sometimes that just is a downer.
Yeah.
I'm always worrying about them and it gets to you after a while, but I just have to remind myself, that, we're all going to make mistakes and not to be too hard on myself and everybody's different. And yeah, so,
and some of those lessons we learned from making the mistakes. And sometimes as parents, I think all of us, we want to protect our kids from making those mistakes. But some of that greatest learning came when we made that mistake. And it's the only way they're going to learn is by kind of making it themselves. Even as much as we want to protect them from whatever heartache or problem that's going to be, you got to loosen the grip a little to let them make that mistake so that they can learn.
It's funny because I always think back when I was younger and my parents would try to tell me something or warn me about something. I thought, oh, you have no clue you have no clue what I'm going through right now. And it's funny looking back at that stuff and it just kind of makes me laugh because it's like, oh my God, they were right.
I can't tell them that they were right, but they were right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, once in a while I'll tell my mom that I'm talking to my mom and I'll say, well, yeah, you were, when you kind of warned me about this situation I was getting into, or I'm like, yeah, I guess I understand now.
Yeah. I had to deal with that with my oldest Jacob. He's living in Cornwall, England now.
Really?
Yeah. He moved to England last September, and then got married in November, to his now wife that lived over there. And it was hard enough then. And now with the state of the world, I'm like, you're so much closer to the bad stuff right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a lot closer to the bad stuff right now. It's like, yes, it's, I was on a FaceTime call and I was like, yeah, it's like, yeah, we're this far from all the stuff here in Georgia. You're this far from the stuff in England. And it's like seeing that it's an extra level of that kind of dread and worry, but you gotta let them live their life some.
Yeah.
As much as you're like, get on a plane, come back here, spring everybody. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. And it's hard because I see my kids too, like with technology. And I know parents all have this problem now, but imagine growing up with, social media. Like, I'm not sure how old you are, but when I was a kid, it's like you would get out of school and you were done. You get home and that was like your safe place. Like say if you had a bad day at school or you were feeling inferior or something like that, and you'd come home and I'd flip on the Brady Bunch and veg out and and that my day was finished and I was in my safe place. Yeah. But like now kids, it's like you go online and you see what all your friends are doing and there's, comments online and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I can't imagine dealing with that at that age. So I always try to think, protect my kids from some of that stuff. But yeah, it's a whole different world we're in now.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, being able to, you want to try and protect them and let them know that home is still a safe place. And, whether it be the inferiority complex they may have because, social media, that's curated content. That's everybody's highlight reel. Nobody's putting, stubbing the toe at 3:00 in the morning, trying to get to the bathroom reels up on their Instagram. You know what I mean? It's like, but there are people that are doing it, everybody stubs their toe, and so whether they're dealing with like an inferiority complex type thing because of the curated content they see from somebody else, from their friends or whatever, or if it is that, and I hate this part of social media is that malicious hiding behind the keyboard bully, making comments that that could be people you don't even know. And
they always they're always an anonymous person too. Whenever I get a nasty comment on Instagram, like a cruel comment or a racist comment or something, it's always somebody that's, hiding behind a different name or, that's another thing. What's even as adults with social media, I mean, we have to be careful of that too. It's like sometimes I'll go on there and I'll start to feel inferior because I'll see all these like, illustrators that have all these really cool pieces or working on projects. And you kind of like start to think like, why am I not getting that kind of work or why, and it's funny because, tying this in with the nostalgia bit, when I was a kid, I used to, another thing growing up in the 80s, I was a big fan of like 80s pro wrestling. Mm-hmm. And once in a while, when I'm eating lunch, I'll go back and I'll watch like interviews with like 1980s pro wrestlers.
Yeah.
And one of the guys, do you remember Leaping Lanny Poffo?
No.
He was, I don't know if you watched wrestling in the 80s, but
I did. They used to come to the Civic Center here in town and my grandparents would take us, we'd go watch wrestling.
He was actually the brother of Macho Man Randy Savage, his younger brother.
Okay.
And he, I saw an interview with him, and this quote, I want to almost get put this on a frame, but he had a quote where he said that people always ask him, what was it like, living in your brother's shadow? And because he was a pro wrestler too, but he was more of like one of those enhancement talent guys that kind of got beat up a lot. And he never got the stardom that his brother got, but he was a famous wrestler, well known. But he always, his motto was that he liked living in his brother's shadow and he had no problem with that. And he was proud of his brother, but he always says his motto is, do your best and forget the rest, where do the best you can possibly do and stop comparing yourself to others. And I'm trying to remind myself of that. I always think of that. And I kind of tell that to my kids too. It's kind of funny. But yeah, like I do that where I'll be in a bookstore and I'll walk around and I'll see like 6 different books, all illustrated by the same illustrator. And I think, what is this guy doing that I'm not, like it's kind of, it's a very talented illustrator, obviously, but I think like, how are they getting these projects? But yeah, and I feel kind of inferior but
which it's weird that inferiority complex also sometimes comes along with an imposter syndrome too.
That too. That's another huge thing.
You're getting the bad of both sides of this coin where it's like, it's like, I'm doing this thing. I'm not as good as this other person. I'll get a job and I'll think, oh my God, there's so many people that I know that are far more talented than me that are looking for work right now. And I think, how did I get this job? Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. So, and there's that little, tinge of guilt that you have, but yeah, it's something I'm trying to work on, I guess. Do your best. Forget the rest.
Yes.
All right, Rob, it is segment 3 now. It is time now for the Fast Five. Fast Five. It's time now for the Fast Five.
So how are you doing on getting that jingle? You were going to get the jingle made? Or you could do like an 80s metal?
Yeah, I'm still workshopping that. Still trying to, get with somebody who really gets the feel for what the Fast Five is. I just hadn't found the right collaborator yet on that. But the Fast Five is powered by Poddex. It's an app created by my friend Travis Brown. It's created for podcasters. It's conversation starters. It's interview questions. There's an app you can find in any of your app stores. And also there are physical decks that you can get as well, which are great to keep, 4 or 5 of those in your back pocket wherever you go. If you got to, talk to people and you're not used to talking to people, they're really great conversation starters. And if you go to chewinthefatbr.com/poddex, you can use promo code CHEW and get 10% off your decks. But the way this goes, Rob, is I'm going to hit the randomizer, going to pick 5 questions. First answer comes off the top of your head. No wrong answers. I've had people think that there are wrong answers. There are no wrong answers. So just whatever you're feeling. You ready? This
is the one I'm most nervous for.
Everyone says that. I don't get it.
I'm a slow thinker.
Oh, it's okay. Well, I mean, you can ruminate while we go over it. Here's question number 1. What kind of pajamas do you wear?
Depends.
Wait, not like the diaper thing. You mean like
yeah.
Oh, okay.
That too. Frequent accidents. No. It's cold in Wisconsin in the winter, so usually just like flannel pajama pants.
Mm-hmm.
And in the summer, I just wear regular shorts.
Okay.
Like not cargo shorts, but just like regular, like athletic shorts or something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty much me year round. Is athletic, gym short type things in a t-shirt because it's Georgia.
Yeah, t-shirt too.
Yeah, it's Georgia, so it's usually.
I always have a t-shirt on, no matter what.
In the shower, in the pool.
That too.
All right, question number 2. Name one thing on your bucket list.
Wow, bucket list. Well, there's lots of travel places.
Okay.
Australia would be one of them. Ireland is another one.
Yes.
Bucket list. Well, kind of what I mentioned earlier. I'd like to do a creator-owned project.
Nice. Okay.
Like a graphic novel or a children's book series. And I've had tons of them that I've developed that I just could not get to a story to materialize.
Gotcha.
From my crazy drawings.
Okay. But it's great that it's still on there. It's something there'll be a check mark by that at some point. I guarantee you, Rob, there'll be a check mark by that piece on your bucket list at some point. All right. And number 3. If humans came with a warning label, what would yours say?
Oh man. Contents under pressure. Gosh, that's a tough one.
I think it may be contents under pressure.
No direct eye contact. I don't know. I'm an introvert, so no, I'm just kidding.
No, that makes sense. I feel like I am one of those weird, like right on the line introvert, extrovert type people, so it just all depends on the people in the situation, which side of that coin I'm going to fall on.
Do not expose to sunlight. I don't know.
Oh, that's a good one. All right. Question number 4. Toilet paper, over or under?
Over. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. And I heard that the episode you had about the spider thing, was that?
Yeah.
The spider hiding behind
the thing, and then when you pull it out and it jumps out at you or whatever. Yeah, it's like, huh? I'd read that online or saw that somewhere that's why they do it the other way. I'm like, still makes no sense, but whatever.
Yeah, it drives me crazy when my kids will, replace when they do replace the toilet paper in the bathroom. Rarely, but sometimes they'll do that. They'll flip it around. That drives me crazy. It's
what I always run into with the child that is still here, the 24-year-old child that is still here at the house, is usually it's a roll of toilet paper on the edge of the tub. I'm like, oh yeah, there's a roll right there. There's a place for it. You obviously finished it. It's your bathroom. Why is it on the tub? Why is that where it goes? And it's not like it's a new one and he's sitting there. No, it'll stay there and it will go and it will end up being, completely used, never having made it over to the dispenser roll thing. And it just drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. I just do not get it. All right. And number 5. When is the last time you cried?
I want to admit this. Well, I get like, I tear up easily.
Yeah.
There was something, I may have been your podcast. There was someone was telling a story. Oh, it was the episode. I can't remember his name, but he's I think an actor friend of yours who had a little boy that had a condition, and he passed away at 16 months.
Yeah.
And that story really got to me. And I actually, that was this morning or yesterday. Wow. I worked on that, and that made me missed up quite a bit. And then some of the sites we're seeing out of Ukraine now, that too. It's like, oh my God.
For sure.
Just heartbreaking.
Yeah. I didn't, it was a random, I hate to go out on like a downer question or anything like that, but also let me say thank you so much for listening to the podcast as much as you have. I'm a huge fan.
I love the show.
Dude, I appreciate that so much. Well, that is our Fast Five, and that is the show. Rob, thank you so much for taking some time to speak to a stranger over a webcam.
Well, thanks, Rob.
For an hour or so. Double B, I really appreciate your time and your openness. And if folks want to keep up with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Well, I have a website, but I have not updated it, and it's still a placement page. I redesigned it a few years ago and then took it down, and then I am in the process of redesigning the site, but I'm most active on Instagram. So ROBB, two B's like you. Mommaerts is spelled Mommaerts. And that's where you'll see all my latest stuff. When lately I've been a little dry with putting things up there. I just put up some St. Patrick's Day thing. I'm big on holidays, so I'm always putting holiday art up. So, but yeah, you'll see all my latest artwork on Instagram pretty much. So,
well, we will put the link up for your Instagram in the show notes. And of course you can find that on the website as well, along with all of our past guests at chewingthefatbr.com. Rob, it really truly has been a pleasure. I hope we stay in touch. I am a fan of what you do. And I wish you nothing but success in all of your current and future endeavors.
You too. Thanks, Rob. I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you. If you would like to support this podcast, I'd appreciate it if you buy me a coffee at chewingthefatbr.com. And I look forward to the next time we have a moment to sit a spell and chew the fat.